Welcome guys and girls to the onboard footage from our Miltech Sport GT86 Cup car at the 2017 Nürburgring 24-hour. For those of you who missed the race, oh my god, you missed the absolute most epic race I can ever remember. It was crazy. 23 hours and 40 minutes of flat out hot weather driving on a dry track. Every car on the grid boiling at 40 to 50 degrees inside the cabin. Our car, our GT86, was entered in the SP3 class. SP3 is the second most difficult and highly contested class in the entire 24-hour grid. 24-hour race, 160 cars. The first and most prestigious class is the GT3s, and there's 30 cars in there. The second biggest class is actually SP3. What's SP3? 2-litre modified race cars. These cars can have all kinds of modifications. I'm talking sequential gearboxes, wide arches, big fat 10, 11 and 12J wheels even. Our car? GT86 Cup car, amazing little car. We run in a single make class for Toyota GT86 Cup cars. Miltech is a proud technical sponsor of that class and it's all run by Toyota Motorsports. But there's no GT86 Cup class at the Nürburgring 24, so we get lumped in with the SP3s. At first we thought, should we enter this? We have some stiff competition. Opel Manta. You guys know the Foxtail Manta, I'm very sure. This is a car that's been running since the early 80s. It is, without any exception, one of the fastest and oldest cars running around the world today. Okay, this is a car designed in the 70s, running a mid-90s 250, 260 horsepower red top Vauxhall XE motor, lightweight rear-wheel drive sequential gearbox and 4 very good drivers. Why would we enter against it? Why would we enter against the Avia Racing Clio? An incredible car that can lap almost as fast as a Porsche and has, again, 3-4 amazing drivers. Well, we are up there for a challenge, or we don't mess around at Miltech. We are here to go and push the boundaries. So, we enter the GT86 Cup. We go in the SP3 class. We have an epic race. We're leading it until our first drive shaft pops and we realise we have a problem. Well, 3 drive shafts later, 2 wheel bearings, 1 alloy wheel. We even replace the exhaust. We have to rejig everything because of rubber brakes near the back, and that puts pressure on the front, which pops the springs. We have a race that with any other team, we'd have been out of it. We wouldn't have been pushing for a podium, but our team gave it 100%. Relentless persistence, 100% for 23 hours and 40 minutes. And that's where this video begins. 20 minutes from the end. This guy here has been given the car for the last couple of hours. I'm pushing hard. I'm in 4th place, pushing for 3rd, carrying all this hard work by the rest of the team and trying to convert it into a trophy. Well, what happens next is pretty simple. I think it's all over. The team are watching on the live stream and I've been pushing as hard as I can, but I've only closed the gap down to 2 minutes and there's only 2 laps left to go, so I can't possibly make up 1 minute per lap, can I? And then Steve gets on the radio. He tells me it's raining in Flansgarten and I just think this is it. This is the moment. I'll let you watch the rest. And here we go. The track's just gone wet. You can see I'm still pushing. Remember, slicks are still hot. Hot slicks means that you've still got some grip even in damp conditions. So I'm pushing, but the trouble is the water cools the slicks down in seconds. And already you can see there in the middle of Adenauer Forst, I'm fighting the car, fighting. Things are getting pretty tricky pretty quick, but I'm so obsessed with trying to catch up with this Clio and get the trophy back to the guys. I'm nearly into the barrier there. I'm heading up over the hill here towards Metzgersfeld. I see the double yellows, but I don't want to slow down too much, so I leave the braking as late as possible. Luckily for me, the double yellows changed to code 60s just after I exit So past the crashed AMG there, who's obviously just crashed in the wet, and I'm already homing in on the next guy. It's tricky. Hart up ahead now, downhill braking area, really treacherous. I move over onto the right hand side, use the tarmac that's not got rubber on it, and then swap out to the centre of the track, moving towards the left hand side, trying to find a good grip. Again, Spiegel curve, I can see it's getting still very, very wet, braking in a straight line, turning the car very gently, and being very, very careful over those changes in the crossfall and the changes of the camber of the tarmac. And now I can see that it's rained here a little bit less, and although the tarmac is wet, it's not wet enough to slow me down. So I'm going back up to speed here, looking ahead, trying to figure out where the next bit of rain is going to hit the track. As we get down into Versailles hairpin, you can see it's actually reasonably dry, and then it just goes full wet again. Normal stuff in the Nürburgring. The E46 up ahead of me is also a confident driver in the wet. So while lots of other people are really coming off the gas and literally losing 10 to 15 minutes of driving in 2 laps, me and the Ho4 E46 N3 ahead, we're still pushing. But he's not quite pushing enough for my tastes, so I want through and take him on the inside here and run up to Exmoor. The entry to Lauder Links in the wet is always a really dangerous braking area, so I move over to the full right hand side here, braking as hard as I dare, and then moving the car to the full left hand side for the middle and exit phase of the corner. Again, I'm just avoiding the racing rubber and trying to find the areas of the track that I've got the most grip. I'm accelerating hard now at Kesselchen, and ahead of us is a fairly confident driver in the Cayman, also on slicks. But behind me is a GT3 Cup car. Luckily for him, I aquaplane quite neatly over to the right hand side, giving him a nice gap. I wait for him to come past and then tuck in again. It's really, really tricky now. The third left of Kesselchen's got a bump in it, and it's also a slippery surface in the wet. So at this point, just accelerating is causing wheel spin, and we're topping out at barely 60 miles an hour here. Passing the Cayman, I look ahead a few cars and I realise the Clio that I'm chasing, the third position, is already in front of me and I can see him. So now I'm just trying to overtake all these guys. I'm getting serious aquaplaning again, and I see the yellow up ahead. So I'm getting a little bit paranoid now because I realise other people could be crashing on this. And there's the code 60 up ahead. I slow down. As soon as I pass the green flag, I get back on the gas, but there's just no grip. I mean, the tyres now are completely cold. I'm just wheel spinning, trying to go past the Clio, and I'm just wondering, does he know that I am his trophy, basically? And does he know he's got to stay with me if he wants to keep that trophy? So the pressure's really on, my heart rate is rising, and I just keep looking in the mirror thinking, is he going to chase me? Is he not? Is he the kind of guy or girl that really knows the track in the wet, or is he just going to back off and just try and make it back to the pit lane? I've been driving the Nürburgring, and I love driving in the wet. And normally when I drive it in the wet, I'm driving on my knackered semi-slicks, on my track car, or just on street tyres in a street car, or street tyres in the ring taxi. So what you're seeing next is stuff that you might not see normally, and I'm not using the normal racing lines. And hot act here, I see the TCR car coming up behind me. He's obviously got full wets on. I take the left and I let him through on the right, so I can stay on the left, because here at Horak, the left-hand side is a lot more grippier in the wet than the right. And again, heading down to Whipperman, I know if I get to the right-hand side here, I've got a bit more braking potential if I need it. But then, as I cross the racing line, I know also that I'm going to have less grip. And you'll see I'm just pushing it, trying to keep some temperature in the tyres. I mean, that is pretty futile because there's just so much water that the tyres are cooling down to black plastic bricks, basically. Turning in here, boom, it just understeers. As we drive through Brunchen here, you can see the rain's not slowed down at all. There's a lot of standing water. I go for the full outside line and I actually use the cobbles on the exit, because the cobbles give you more grip in these conditions on slicks than the actual road surface would. As I leave Ice Curve behind and head down to Flansgarten 1, turning into the left, you can see the car just understeers off, and I just get it back just before it touches the grass. Anywhere where there's a dip in the track, you've got to be aware that the water will gather, it will cool, it gives you more chance of aquaplaning. Up ahead of me is the Bilstein AMG GT3. He's also out on slicks right now and really regretting that decision. My car has much smaller tyres, much narrower tyres, and is less prone to aquaplaning than a GT3, and I take full advantage of that. At this point, you can see I'm accelerating, and I've realised that there's not much more rain coming out of the sky, and I'm confident that the residual heat in the tarmac means that if no more rain comes down, then I'm definitely going to be staying on slicks. I remember thinking at this point here, as I go past the two cars ahead, I was thinking, should I try and jump in for some wets, knowing that I have probably about 30 seconds to a minute behind me to the Clio? Should I go for the safe option and go for wets, or should I stay out on the slicks and run the risk of finding more rain, or alternatively find that actually the rain has already evaporated off the very hot track? And this is what's going through my head here. I'm just staying on the inside as another car on full racing wets comes past me. And my decision kind of gets made for me in the next 30 seconds, because I come out gently out of Galpenhof, and I'm looking ahead and I think, hey, is that dry up ahead? Is this the end of the rain? Although I'm going quite fast, you can see I'm still feathering the throttle. I'm not really going over 200 k's, and it's only about here that I realise, although the dampness is pretty much gone, my slicks are actually cold. So I'm just being a little bit slower than I would be normally at the full dry. So another lap that I drive past the pit lane entrance without taking advantage of the lovely Manhella guys sitting there with a full set of racing wets. And I know at this point that most of the grid the psychology will be, you've got 24 hours invested in this race, it's the final lap, you don't want your driver to crash on the rain, driving on slicks, that would be really stupid. So I'm pretty confident that everybody's going to make a pit stop. But I know that even the best teams, a pit stop's going to cost them nearly a minute. And for some of the smaller teams who don't have all the jacks and don't have air jacks in their cars, it could take us 2 minutes to change tyres. So with only a minute or two behind me to the Clio that I overtook, I'm absolutely determined to take full advantage of the tri-track in front of me. It's at this point I realised that the Audi TCR car in front of me might actually still hold me up, which I find surprising because although I can see clearly he came out of the pits right in front of me, he's going to be on full racing wets, I would have thought a 350 horsepower downforce car would easily outpace me even if he's on wets and I'm on slicks. What's surprising is that he doesn't, and now I'm starting to get a little bit worried because I think, is he going to like slow me up when we hit the Nordschleife in the dry conditions? Is he going to push me back into the Clio that I know if it was me in that Clio, I would be chasing like a crazy guy right now? And boom, surprise, there's a GT3 Cup car. To be honest, I did see him, but only in the last couple of seconds before I committed to the Overtaking TCR. And now I'm like, oh no, I do hope this GT3 doesn't slow me down. And this is the reality of you being on slicks and those guys being on wets. They're trying to conserve their wet tyres so they don't blow up. If you have the Michelin soft racing wets at the Nürburgring, you can absolutely destroy those in less than one lap of dry driving. So yeah, again, I've got one eye ahead of me and one eye behind me thinking, where is that Clio? Did he pit? Did he not pit? And it's about now as I go through Hatzenbach that I get the message that the Clio's pitted. And I'm thinking, wow, I've got like a minute and a half advantage here on the track. And he's going to be in the pits to get his tyres. So even if it's really, really wet, all I have to do is get to the end. And I only worked this out about here. Because previously I was getting annoyed with GT3. On the big run now down to Schwedenkreuz, and you're going to see what happens on the last lap of the Nürburgring 24, is that a lot of teams who know that they're not going to make it the whole race, they eject their cars out onto the track to try and cross the line just for the publicity and for the sense of satisfaction, and that means you get slow moving cars like that Audi. I mean, he was doing, what, 50 kilometers per hour on a section where I'm doing over 200? Yeah, a little bit crazy. So now I'm heading down into the foxhole, my slicks are hot again, and I'm thinking, bring it rain, I know you're down here, I know it's wet, but I'm going to keep pushing. And sure enough, as I get down here, I see I've got a dry line into the wetness. So I'm trying to stay on the dry line, I'm trying to keep pushing, I'm trying to keep the tyres hot. I can still see the car ahead of me, even after this time. Letting the car move around, letting the car slide a little bit, getting wheel spin, is nothing to be afraid of. You want to keep the tyres moving because you want to keep them warm. Warm slicks will grip to damp tarmac. Now you can see the car in front of me is disappearing, his racing wet's coming into play. I've got a single yellow here, but it's not a speed limit, it's not a code 120 or code 60. The guys coming through from behind here, the Audi and the Cayman, see they're on full racing wets, and this is the leader right now. So if you're watching the live stream, this is where our little Miltech GT86 appeared for a few brief seconds. And if, as I did when I watched the live stream back later that night, I was very impressed with the Cayman in front of the Audi. The guy in the Cayman, he was on racing wets. and that Audi couldn't touch him for quite some time. Again, for reasons known only to the Nürburgring, this section here was a little bit drier and a little bit wet in the middle, and then it went dry again, and I'm just pushing. Heading into louder links again now, and I look in the mirror, I can see there's a TCR car behind me. What I can't figure out is he on slicks or is he on wets? It's fine with me because I know the line that I want now. I don't need to brake too much. I go to the full left where I find it totally dry on the left hand side of the track, so I just get gas on again and accelerate. The TCR car on the inside of me, he's on the damp stuff. And then behind me again, flashing lights, here comes a Ferrari GT3. And I'm understeering out towards the gap that he's taking, just hoping that, you know, the two things come together in a nice way and that we don't actually hit each other. Now here it's really wet. I'm very afraid of that corner there in the wet, and the GT3s are all fighting for position. The TCR car there, that's the guy that I just overtook on the GP circuit, of course, and he gets the honour of taking me back again. Not surprising. As I enter Styles Track over here, you can see once again I'm using the outside line, and I've got a Porsche behind me. What's really surprising is that I see the Aston up ahead, and he's still out on slicks and taking it very, very slowly. And then I look again in the mirror and I go, uh-oh, GT3s, lots of GT3s. So this is obviously the fight for position, and even though I wasn't totally up to date on exactly who was leading the track, I guess from the way the Rover Racing M6 pushed through, that he is racing for position as well. And in fact, here comes Rene Rast's Audi from the WRT team. It's going to follow the Bilstein AMG. So there's the Bilstein AMG that I overtook in the first lap that you saw. Here's Rene Rast's Audi RA, I remember that. I remember thinking, hey, wasn't he the leader? And then I think, whoa, the Land Motorsport Audi, he came through past me at Eschbach. So I'm like, wow, this rain isn't just like, you know, messing up my class. I realise, of course, there's a whole race, it's not just me. Here comes the Cayman GT4 on wets. I'm pretty jealous of the guy on wets right now, thinking to myself, wow, I'd love to be driving on rain tyres in these conditions. But of course, I also know that by the time I get to Galgenhof, it's going to be practically dry again. I mean, the sky's lighting up, there's no dark clouds, the only rain that's on the windscreen is coming from the cars in front. And really, at this point, I'm just thinking, don't crash. And then another voice inside me keeps saying, well, what if the Clio's got a really hot driver in it and he's on racing wets? And I'm thinking, how much faster would he be than me? I'm thinking quite a lot. So then I start pushing again. Such is the way of it. But you can see, as soon as the rain's actually stopped coming out of the sky and what water is sitting there isn't moving around, it's just starting to evaporate. My tyres are up to a good enough temperature that they operate. They're not totally cold. It's not like when you're driving through the deep water and you're just taking the heat out of the tyres. Now you can see, holding over 60 miles an hour through Flat Scarp 2, the car's actually got a little bit of grip. concentrating hard, just making it through here while the GT3 is trying to come through on my right. And at this point I'm like, wow, that's one of the danger points really, really behind me now. All that's left is a couple of kilometres to that finish line. Steve's already been on the radio, he's told me the checkered flag's out, the Audi R8 Land Motorsport car, he's already over the line by this point, so I know that all I have to do is make it to this checkered flag without the Clio overtaking me. And at this point, you know, a Clio on racing wet's going to be much faster than me, so I'm still checking my mirrors, thinking, you know, how quick could his pit stop have been, how far behind me was he when he made that pit stop. And then I look up ahead to Galgenhof and I see the dry tarmac just coming through in the edges. And I think, oh, is it going to be dry here? It's not quite dry yet. And then I see a bit more dry. And I'm just like, as soon as I can get this thing full throttle, I know for a fact we've just stolen that P3 right from under the nose of the Clio guys. So, sorry guys, but that's racing. Hitting the thunderstorm now, checking my mirror. Not seeing anything Clio shaped at all. No, I've only checked my mirror about 1 million times this lap. Not seeing anything Clio shaped. So now I'm just flat out and I'm thinking to myself, well, should I back off a little bit and go easy now? Because I can see that the Clio's definitely not the kilometres behind me. I'm like, no, just go flat out. Because racing car, because racing driver. I don't slow down. Very, very, very excited now. Can barely believe it, to be honest. I mean, when you consider all the damage that we had to the car, we changed drive shafts 3 times. We had 2 critically fail. Both times we ended up pushing the car back to the pit lane. We had 2 impacts from one from a GT4, one from a GT3. We had all kinds of problems. We changed wheel bearings. We changed ball joints. We had broken wheels. We had everything that could happen, and somehow we've just got third. And you know, I'll be honest, there was tears in my eyes at this point. I was practically blubbing behind the wheel, but that's the Nürburgring 24, and that's why we all do it. That's why the whole team turned up and we all went through it, through this meat grinder that is the Nürburgring 24-hour, throwing ourselves into the fray. Everybody working 100%. Make no mistake, this is a team effort. It's not really about the driver. It was a full team effort, relentless persistence from every member. So thanks guys, thanks for all the support. I can't wait for the next race.